nice.
Bomber clad shoot up on fire, man.
It's a top, my selector.
Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
I know you gonna dig this.
Gorilla than the planet of the apes. I write a punchline and plant it on your face. Eat a punch that you ain't even got to taste. Hit the shot that you ain't even got to chase.
And I'm back with two of my favorite guys to talk boxing with. This is Maestro, and I'm back to talk about the best of 2023, the year that's ahead of us. I'm here joined with none other than Bass the Kid. He's definitely a hardcore boxing fan. There's no casual involved. And I'm also joined with, or joined by, I should say, my big brethren out there, Tony, a.k.a. the Pugilist Boy. Now, Tony, let me ask you something, since Santa Claus, or as you guys call it, Father Christmas, might be making, his rounds. We got a lot of things on our wish list for next year. Has the Pugilist Boy be naughty or nice in 2022?
It's been nice. It's been nice. I mean, I didn't get everything that was on my wish list, but I can't complain. I've been having this conversation over the week, and me personally, I think there's more than enough that's happened during the year for me to say 2022 was a great year for boxing and for my own personal pleasure.
Well, there you go. I agree. I had a good time in 2022. There were some fights that didn't get made that people wanted to see, obviously. But overall, it was an entertaining year, I think. And I was telling Bass this, that one of the reasons I was so happy to have both of you guys join me today is because you guys have what's definitely one of my top 3 boxing shows that I watch every week. I might even say number 1, but it's definitely top 3. I don't want to insult anybody else. And one of the reasons I like it so much is because the community needs what you guys offer, which is actual fight analysis and breakdown, right? It's not all about the he said, and Eddie and Frank and Aram and the PBC and, rumblings and mumblings and rumor mill, which obviously is very entertaining. There's a needed zone for that in the community, a good space for that. But we also need the breakdown of the fights, which you guys always provide week after week, all right, to the boxing heads, the boxing fiends, all right, the hardcore community. So it's very needed. But you guys don't talk about mythical things and things you want to see. You literally just break down the fight. So I'm happy to have you guys talk a little bit about things that we have on our wish lists for 2023. Bass, what about you? You looking forward to 2023 in boxing?
Oh yeah, I mean, to be honest, I look forward to boxing every year. There's a lot of times where we don't get everything that we want, but there's also times where, especially as a hardcore fan, we get what we didn't know we needed. And I think that's also just as good. Sometimes you just get these gems that come out of nowhere and you're like, damn, I wasn't thinking about that one, but that was actually the best thing I got this year. So all good.
There you go. I want to thank everybody that's joined us bright and early. Yes, it is early. All right. Jacob Sims, Ness Mendoza's in the house, Jesus M, and Puro Sur. It's definitely an early start for people here in the United States. We got Jay. I was up here at, what was it, 5 something in the morning today. It's a little after 7 a.m. So if you're not catching us live, hit us with a comment on demand. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you are watching on demand, I will be posting the link to Bass the Kid's channel over here. I will be posting links to how you can see Tony and Bass doing their thing week after week, again, on one of my favorite shows, the Undefeated podcast. All right. Their show Monday Night Smoke goes live on Mondays, but they also have the breakdown. You guys cannot forget about the breakdown. Big up for the breakdown. That's my guys, Tony P and Bass the Kid. So this is going to be the format for today's show. I'm going to go over the 5 fights that I really want to see next year. All right. These are fights that have not been announced. One of the fights that I'm actually looking forward to, guys, believe it or not, is Charlo versus Zoo, which has actually already been commented on in the chat. I think that's a very good fight. You got an undefeated prospect moving up to take kind of a quite a veteran at this point in Charlo. I don't quite know if he's an elder statesman, but he's definitely a solid guy and one of the best in the sport, and an undefeated, sorry, not undefeated, but an undisputed world champion. So I'm not going to mention that one because it's already signed. Most of the fights I'm going to mention, in fact, all of the fights I'm going to mention are fights that haven't been signed, except for one, which came out this week. They said that both sides have agreed to it. So that first fight, I'm sure you guys can guess it already, is for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. We've got Alexander Usyk, all right, taking on the biggest, literally, challenge of his career, the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury. So, look, it's the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. If you're a boxing fan, if you're looking forward to 2023, I don't really know how that wouldn't be on your list, but we're going to be going to Base and Tony afterwards. We'll see if that fight's on their list or not. But that's definitely on my list. So I'm sure it's on a lot of people's lists. It's the heavyweight championship. So there you go. Another fight that I am really hoping happens is Dimitri Bivol, the WBA super champion at 175, taking on his countryman, his compatriot, his fellow Russian, Artur Beterbiev, who right now fights out of Montreal, Quebec, under the tutelage of not only Russ Amber, not only Iceman Scully, but also, of course, Mark Ramsey, one of my favorite trainers in the sport. I gotta go undisputed. I gotta go 175. I gotta go the light heavyweight championship of the world. So that one is definitely on my list as well. The next few is where I'm probably going to deviate from a lot of other people. But if you've watched this channel long enough, and I know a lot of you are mainstays here, so this one probably won't surprise you. And I've actually got 3 names here on this one because I'm good with any of these because I think they would be great fights. I want to see Kazuto Ioka get his just due, and I'm good. Give me Puma Martinez, all right? Who recently won a title at 115. He's action-packed, all right? What he did to Jerwin Ancajas was incredible. He did it twice. So I'm good with Puma Martinez at 115 against Ioka. And by the way, yes, I think Ioka is going to do the business against Joshua Franco next week. Or give me Juan Gallo Estrada. I'm good with that fight too. So Ioka against Estrada, Ioka against Puma Martinez. Either of those 2 fights I am good with. 2 more to go, and then we're going to go right to my guy, Base the Kid. All right? This one, again, if you were a mainstay on this channel, probably won't surprise you all that much. And yes, I think Benavidez is going to do the business against Plant. So I want to see Benavidez against David Morrell Jr. I got to see that fight. If this fight gets made in 2023, I'm going to this fight. If I don't get accredited, I'm going to be there front row with my popcorn, ready to enjoy the fight. And the guy that's key to making this fight happen is right there in the middle. That's Don Benavidez Sr., all right? Jose Benavidez Sr., he's the head of that stable. He trains his namesake, Junior, and he trains David Benavidez, who's a bigger name than Junior at this point. Trains a lot of other people as well. I believe he actually trains Cyborg now in boxing, the female entrant into the sport out of MMA. So I got to go with that fight too. I'm a huge fan of both of those guys. They're always in exciting fights. You mix those 2 together, and that is an explosive combination. The last one on my list, and Tony P, I have a feeling you're going to like this one Because for those of you that know Tony, know that he's a pugilist specialist, but he's also a former lightweight. He likes the lightweight division. He likes one of the guys I'm going to mention here. To me, the fight ain't Tank Ryan. I'm sorry. I'm going to watch that fight. I'm going to be excited for that fight. But, you know, I'm going to be like these big dogs, you know, when the food's getting ready to be served. You've been around a big dog when they're serving food, the mouth starts to water. They get all kind of crazy. All right, because if this fight happens, 2023, this is what I want to see. They were youngins here. All right, they were youngins here when this photo was taken, but they men now, they're grown men now. I'm talking Shakur Stevenson against Tank Davis. I got to see that fight because with Tank, you got a guy who's explosive, he's skilled, but he has, I'm going to be honest, Tony, you're not going to like me saying this, but he has not been fully tested at 135 pounds. He hasn't been. I mean, with all due respect to Pitbull Cruz, he wasn't really on anybody's list before that fight. With all due respect to Yuriorkis Gamboa, he was past it at that point. With all due respect to Santa Cruz is best years are at 122 pounds, 26 if you really want to push it. That's the fight. Shakur Stevenson against Tank David. I mean, that's the matchup right there for me at 135 pounds. So that's my list. And I just want to answer Jesus's question here. No, these are not scheduled fights. None of my fights are scheduled fights. This is my Christmas list, guys. Right? Maestro's been a good boy all year, and I'm letting Santa Claus know, Father Christmas know right now, this is what I want in 2023. You give me 5 fights, those are the 5 fights. So there you go. So that's my list. We're gonna go to Base the Kid next, and then we're gonna go to Tony. Base the Kid, the floor is yours.
I can't believe it. You actually took 4 of my 5. So no, I want to see Usyk Fury. Look, we need Undefeated at heavyweight. It needs to happen just so we can finally move on from it, because that's been a plague for like 19 years now. It needs to happen. So yeah, that was in there. David Morrell versus David Benavidez was also in there. So was Shakur and Tank. And what was the other 2?
I had a Better Beeb.
Yeah, Better Beeb from Bivol, yeah.
So the one that you didn't have was Kazuto Ryoka. I'm obviously a big Kazuto Ryoka fan. So you can throw in your last one, the one that we didn't.
I'm gonna try 3 because I've got 3 others, so I'll just try to keep it. All right. So there's one fight which I didn't actually realize I wanted until I saw I was on what was it? Punch Perfect Boxing's channel. I watching one of his videos. Shout out to him. He gave a fight, and it's just like a all-out war type fight. But it was Christian Mabili versus Kevin Lily Sajo. I really want to see that. When you said that, I thought, oh wow, yeah, no, that's a fight I need to see.
Like a modern day Gaddy Ward type fight, nonstop action. Yeah, absolutely.
But okay, so 2 other fights that I'd really like to see next year. This again, just from a pure carnage standpoint, I want to see Arslanbek Makhmudov versus Joe Joyce. No. That's a fight where both guys are just coming forward at each other. There's no backward steps. I just need to see what that looks like.
No, that's a tremendous matchup. I went through 5. Did I not? I did 5. Okay, I'm gonna throw in one more.
Okay,
since we had a little bit of cross pollination there.
All right.
The other one that, believe it or not, would make my list probably after my 5. Believe it or not, even though people say that I'm an AJ hater, not really. I just kind of think that there's some issues there. A lot of people overrating him, a lot of people not willing to admit to flaws. But this is a fight that I think you'd be crazy not to want to see.
Yeah.
AJ against Wilder. I mean, sign me up for that. Sign me up for AJ versus Wilder in 2023. I'm not really all that excited about Andy Ruiz versus AJ because realistically, when you look at Andy Ruiz versus Wilder, Andy Ruiz's claim to fame was an upset win. I think he was like, at least 20-1 underdog, maybe higher in that fight. And then he couldn't really capitalize on it. Other than that, what really has he done in his career? I mean, we're talking about a guy that got dropped and was in a pretty competitive fight against a 41-year-old Chris Arreola. These two guys were supposed to fight earlier. They didn't. They both need a big win to get back into championship contention. And we're going to be going division by division in a minute after Tony. So that's a fight. Would you want to see that fight, Base?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that's a fight everyone's wanted to see for God knows how long. Now, regardless of what I think of Wilder's boxing skills and what I've always maintained, it is literally one of those who lands first. And I always used to think Wilder would land first, but when it comes to boxing, if AJ can obviously navigate and sort of use his boxing skills more conventionally, he can also land at the same time. It's really a gun show. It's a fight that people have to see before they both retire. Although it's never going to be as great as it was when they were both in their prime, so to speak. So
yeah, and when it was going to be for undisputed.
Yeah.
But you know what I like about this matchup? Because you guys already know Maestro, aka Master Knowledge, aka the real knowledge. Okay, loves himself some football. All right, and this is a classic relegation matchup. All right, you lose this one, you get relegated. All right, so I love relegation, promotion and relegation. I love it, right? And when you have your boy AJ taking on Wilder, the loser's getting relegated, right? And there's a lot at stake. And sometimes those relegation matchups are even more exciting than the matchups between 1 and 2 on the league table. So give me some relegation matchups. Sign me up for that. We went through all this, Tony. Great minds think alike.
Oh, right? I still got a couple more.
Sorry. We're going for it. We're going for it.
I'll give you 2 more. So the next one that I would really like to see is Regis Prograis versus Gary Antoine Russell. I'd like to see that. I need to see how those two styles mesh together.
You want to know something about that matchup, Base?
Well,
I got Regis in that matchup all day long because I was at Gary Antoine Russell's last fight. I'm be honest, I thought he got a gift decision, man.
I mean, look, I don't think he's on
Regis. Not a gift
decision. He's on Regis's level, but he needs at this point in time. He's been going long enough. We need to see what he's really got, and I feel like that's going to be the right type of move. Even if he doesn't win that, he can parlay that into better experience moving down the line, but I need to see how it looks.
It's a big jump from barely surviving Rancis Barthelemy at the Barclays. I was at that fight to Regis Prograis, but yeah, it would be exciting for as long as it lasts. Because one thing you'll say about Gary Antoine Russell, when he's in trouble, he doesn't revert to being defensive. He really tries to go for it. So I'm gonna put that on the list too.
The last one, I want to, just because he moved up for the Sonny Edwards fight, I need to see Felix Alvarado against Julio Cesar Martinez. I need to see that fight.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a very good one. You know what's funny about I don't know. Do you think the lusters kind of come off of Julio Cesar Martinez a little bit since that no contest or whatever was ruled against Edwards? Because I mean, it seemed like at that point people were looking at this guys like the boogeyman, like the guy that was going to run through everybody. And now, let me ask you this question. Let me rephrase the question. Was it a mistake to go up and take on Chocolatito in retrospect?
No, that wasn't the mistake. The mistake is not taking other fights he should have been taking beforehand. If anything, that's the only time he actually took a test that, you know, he probably wasn't favored in, even though a lot of people actually think he would have like beat Chocolatito because he was, you know, he didn't have to cut down the weight. He was just naturally younger and fresher. People thought he would just hit too hard and Chocolatito would maybe walk into one. But it's the fact that we haven't got the Sonny Edwards unification 3 different times. His fights with Williams Arroyo, he pulls out, then Arroyo pulls out, then he pulls out, then Arroyo pulls out again. So that's where all of the, you know, and then the fact his very last fight, he looked very underwhelming. Against the Spanish guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But yeah, Cardina, is it?
Yeah, Cardina.
Yeah, so you know that's. So
I thought that the Spanish dude actually fought very well in that fight.
Yeah,
but
Carmona.
That's it. Yeah,
I could have seen it going his way.
Until he busted his hand, yeah, definitely I would have.
It was that kind of nip and tuck, kind of 50-50 fight at the end, I felt. But there you go. Any more fights, Base, or is that it? Because
we can go.
That's a comprehensive list right there. It's a comprehensive list. All right, let's go to Tony P real quick. Tony, well, not real quick. Take as long as you need. I'm not trying to rush the pugilist, boy.
Okay, so first and foremost, the fights that I think we have to see next year are Fury against Usyk, which is pretty much in the pipeline right now.
Mm-hmm.
Spence versus Crawford, which has been in the pipeline for 2 years at minimum.
Yeah.
Bivol versus Beterbiev.
All right, so we've agreed on 2.
Yeah. Those are the 3 that I would say we must see.
Okay.
By hook or by crook, we must see those fights. Now, I have a whole stack of fights based around some of your commentary.
Right there, real quick, Tony, and we'll have a short little discussion. I've been hearing we need to see Crawford Spence for probably about 4 years now. At what point do we no longer need to see it? Or will we be saying this for 2024? Or will we be saying this for 2025? Or is this the last year that we're going to be saying this finally?
This is definitely the last year we're going to be saying this because, quite frankly, both those champions will be moving up. I see both those champions no longer competing in the welterweight division in 2024. So naturally, this has to be the last year that this fight can take place at welterweight. And the fact that the 2 champions have the 4 belts basically means that's why it has to happen at this weight, because that fight at light middleweight just doesn't include any belt.
Well, the thing with this is that they're going to have to get this done as their very next fight.
I agree.
Because with the whole exemptions for unification fights, you've got guys right now nipping at heels coming up. We've got Stanionis, we've got Boots Ennis, we've got Virgil Ortiz, and there are actually other fights as well. Fighters trying to vie for world titles. So, I mean, it's also only fair to these other fighters that these guys handle business. You know, these guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's a log jam. You know, this is what happens, unfortunately. You know, we love the idea of unification and undisputed, but what it creates underneath is why we ended up with the Alphabet Gang in the first place. Yeah. Yes, big up Bruce Kai. Yeah, boy, Mana, what going on?
I had no idea, and there's a little bit of a Guyanese connection in my family too. Actually, my aunt actually is in Georgetown. She's CARICOM, and Georgetown is based in CARICOM. So my auntie is actually in Guyana right now as we speak. She works there full time. So big up to Guyana. Big up to my man Bruce Cobra Kai. Okay. Because you know what? Master knowledge have to respect my brother Bruce, you know, and I've known Bruce respected right back. All right. So any other you got these other fights you wanna talk about, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, just to finish off on that Crawford Spence thing, look, it has to happen. It has to happen by mid-year, I would suggest. They both need to ensure that becomes their next fight. Cody Crowley is not even is not even on my sheet of paper, because when I look at the next fights in the welterweight division, I'm looking at Boots Ennis and Virgil Ortiz.
And Stanionis, hopefully.
And Stanionis. But
we're gonna be going.
Crowley's a nice to have, but he ain't a must be in that picture right now.
We're going to be going division by division in a moment for those of you that are looking for that more comprehensive breakdown, because we got the breakdown family right there. So we're going to be breaking down these divisions shortly.
Okay.
So go for it, Tony.
So the other fight, I'm not sure if I jumped out for a second because I needed to do something on my phone, which was coming up. Did anybody mention Canelo Alvarez?
No, I didn't. And
so
here's the deal. I mean, Canelo, it's very clear that he's not going to be fighting Benavidez next. So there's no point in me.
Right. So
there's Benavidez.
This is my point. You got the cash cow of the boxing world.
Yeah. The
most attractive fighter in boxing right now. And nobody wants to see what fight will be the most attractive for him in 2023.
Well,
now, we saw in 22 him.
It's not John Ryder in London with all the.
No, hell no.
But
no.
That's what they're pushing right now.
No, hell no. We don't want to see that. I'm sorry.
See that.
British public want to see it.
And see that. Don't disrespect John Ryder like that. He pulled off 2 upsets this year, man. Shush.
Yeah,
one of them was home cooking though, right? One of them was home cooking.
Yes, it was, but I don't. At this point, if it brings Canelo over here, I don't care. Like, I want to see Canelo live.
Okay,
but this is a good discussion though. Is Canelo fighting in the UK for the first time, the undisputed super middleweight championship in the world, the biggest name in the sport of boxing, Saul Canelo Alvarez? They just did a statue for him in his hometown, right? By the way, it looks a lot better than the Wilder statue. I'm just saying. He's going to be going out to England maybe for John Ryder, most likely, I should say. Wouldn't that be a big event for the UK? The UK massive?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, especially for the casual, that's going to be big. Obviously, the fact that we could do that in either a huge arena or even a stadium potentially, one of the smaller stadiums.
Should they put the Queen's Park Rangers Stadium on hold then, Tony? Or you think it may be a little bigger?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a big fight, and Canelo makes a lot of money, which ultimately is one of the deciding factors. But let's not get this twisted. That ain't the fight that me as the boxing public want to see. Yeah? I put on my list, yeah, right here. You man was talking about Benavidez Morales. That's a lovely fight, but let's be honest. I want to see Canelo fight one of them kids. I want to see him fight Benavidez. I know there's an issue there, but that's the fight I want to see.
Cool. Well, let Benavidez do something first, and then we can see it.
But that's the fight I want to see.
All right, cool.
My last fight.
You're not feeling
not ready yet.
I know Ryder's going to try a lot harder than Eubank Jr.
Well, let me ask you this.
Well,
would Triple G versus Eubank Jr. be interesting in London?
Yes.
Yes.
So would that make your list for Father Christmas, Santa Claus?
It's a nice to have, but it ain't my top 5.
Got you. Okay.
So you mentioned one of my fighters. You didn't mention one of the other ones. So how big I am on Tank Davis. So Tank has to be on my wish list. If Tank gets 3 fights in 2023, I'm overjoyed, because for me, the kid just ain't getting out regularly enough. This 1 fight, 2 fight a year business ain't working for me. And I love the kid.
So Tank Davis makes your list as long as he gets 3 fights.
Tank Davis has to be more active, because to me, he's capable of being the alpha dog in the lightweight division.
Well, I hate to break it to Puro Sur, but that's not happening. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. If you're hoping that happens, I'm just telling you, don't put that on your Christmas list. That upset, because it's gonna be like those cartoons when we were kids, right? That you got the little boy crying because Santa Claus didn't pay him a visit. You know, Santa Claus missed his Christmas. You know, he got a lump of coal. All right, you're gonna be getting a big lump of coal, brother, if that's what is on your Christmas list. I'm telling you that right now. All right, so I understand that, Tony, but here's the thing with Tank Davis. You give me 3 fights with Tank Davis that are like Rolly, or that are like Santa Cruz, or that are like Isaac Cruz. That ain't making my list. I'd rather see a good Tank Davis fight versus 3 of those, what Kenny would call doo-doo fights. Those are doo-doo fights right there. So
yeah, but you know what I want to see.
I need a name for Tank Davis. Don't just say.
Well, you already put it up. Let's get Shakur Stevenson. Let's get Ryan Garcia. Yeah, let's get Lomachenko.
Lomachenko's probably not going to happen. But
all 3 of them fights for me are great fights for Tank.
I would like that. And I'll be honest with you, and people might be shocked to hear me say this, I would probably pick Tank over Lomachenko at this stage. I mean, I saw Lomachenko against the kid in his last fight. Shoot, what's his name again? Man, it's early for me right now. Pardon me?
Who's last fight?
Lomachenko, the Puerto Rican Dominican kid.
Gonzalez. Is it Gonzalez?
No, it wasn't Gonzalez. It was damn. I'll remember it in a moment. But
Jermaine Ortiz.
Thank you, Deluxe Recording. Yeah, Jermaine Ortiz. Thank you. Jermaine Ortiz, he pushed him to the limits, man. And Jermaine Ortiz, to me, is not as skilled as Tank Davis. If anything, the only thing he has on Tank Davis maybe is size. But Tank Davis makes up for that. I've said this before. We get into a little breakdown because I love how you guys break down, and I like to break down. Tank Davis, even though he's short, he actually can fight on the outside, the mid-range, and on the inside because he's got very quick feet and closes range very well. So he can get up in you. So even though Jermaine Ortiz is kind of taller and bigger, I see Tank posing just as many challenges, if not more. Actually, definitely more, because he's definitely got more power than Jermaine Ortiz. I would probably favor him against Lomachenko. It's interesting, too, because he's a southpaw, which troubles a lot of people as well. At this stage, I kind of see Lomachenko kind of on a decline. I think that the next guy to get him is going to really benefit a lot. And I think that guy's probably going to be Devin Haney unless Devin Haney moves up. If I'm Devin Haney, I'm going after Loma over going after Shakur. So Shakur fight is a more difficult fight for me if I'm Devin Haney. And believe it or not, I think the Lomachenko fight is at least, if not more, lucrative. Because the casuals love them some Lomachenko, especially with ESPN waving the pom-poms nonstop, making all kind of ludicrous statements like he's a better lightweight than Roberto Duran. Stop it. So on that note, I went on my little tirade there for a second, But is that it, Tony? You got some more?
No, man. I literally could go on all day, but I have to give two more mentions.
Go for it.
Okay. So I have to mention Sonny Edwards.
Really? Against who?
Sonny Edwards, in his last display, put on a masterclass. And for us to be talking about fights of the year for 2023 and to miss out that kid, to me is remiss.
Well, then give us.
You guys have already mentioned Naoya Inoue, right?
All due respect, Tony, this isn't fighters we want to see in 2023 because you did this with Tank too. I know you want to see Tank, and I now understand. No, you want to see Sonny Edwards, but give us the matchups.
I want to see him fight Alvarado.
Okay,
Alvarado.
Well, you want a rematch?
He just fought Alvarado. What do you want, a rematch?
Yeah. I want to see it. All right, let's go with Martinez.
Which Martinez? Julio Cesar Martinez?
Yeah.
Okay. I think at this point, that's definitely a winnable fight for Sonny Edwards. Personally, I think so.
Okay. And the last one, I don't know if anyone mentioned
Just
tell
the fight, Tony. Just give us your fight. Stop all the talk. Give us the fight.
Inoue Fulton.
Okay, cool.
All right, Fulton Jr. Okay. Let me ask you this. Why would you prefer to see that over AJ? Oh, sorry, MJ, sorry. Akhmadaliev. They're both unified at 122.
They are both unified. And to be honest, I just like the styles. Styles makes fights. And Inoue clearly is just box office.
100%.
Right? If I have to choose between Fulton and Akhmadaliev, I'm picking Fulton because his style is more languid, more showboaty, more attractive than Akhmadaliev. Although I respect Akhmadaliev,
if he's in there with the right
I like the Fulton style.
Okay. I mean, to me, Fulton Jr. can be a bit negative at times, especially with the holding on the inside. He kind of roughhouses a lot. He'll hold when he gets on the inside, then he'll hit. I think he's a tremendous talent. I do also think that the Inoue fight at 122 would be good, but I don't know if I think it would be more exciting than a fight with MJ personally. But I could go either way on that. Yeah, I do want to see Inoue again in 2023. I don't necessarily know if I was Inoue, I'd be jumping to move up so quick. I mean, you do have a lot of names at 115 as well that could potentially move up to 118, get a couple easy wins, but I mean, you go into 122, you're going right into the lines then if it's to MJ or to Stephen Fulton Jr., but I get that. You also got other names out there, 122, like Reis Aloum, who I think is good and has been slipping recently because of PBC inactivity, but it is what it is. So good, we got that one. You said you had another one, Tony? And then we'll go division by division.
No, that's it for now. That'll do.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to set up this division by division conversation. And we'll start at the lowest division, 108 pounds, which is where Inoue started. We just talked about him. It's also where Bam Rodriguez had started and was initially going to be moving to title contention, but they moved him all the way up to take on Carlos Cuadras, and now he's left that division. Would have been interesting to see him try to get a title there and then try to get a title at 112 and then move to 115. He's actually moving to 112 now, apparently. So I don't know if this is going to be possible for you, Tony, because you're on your phone, but I was going to say you could bring up the Box Rec divisional rankings. I'm going to do my best over here to make them as big as possible for people to see on their screens, and then we'll get right into it. All right, so here we go.
Yeah, I'll tell you from now, the only weight I don't watch is the minimum weight, so I couldn't tell you any in minimum. But
well, the minimum weight to me is pretty easy to we'll just blow through it. All right, we've got a lot of guys here from Asia, obviously, and from Mexico. These are the guys that dominate these divisions. I mean, just get to one champion, one face, one name as Deontay Wilder said. One face, one name. We got Pradab Sri, who I believe is Thai. The WBA super champ is Thai. Then you've got Valadares, and then you've got the Japanese guy, Taniguchi. Let's just get IBF WBO versus the winner of WBC WBA, and then just move up. Because the fact is, outside of Southeast Asia and Japan and Mexico, and where these guys are from, no one knows who these guys are realistically. And for anybody to learn who these guys are, they're going to have to be undisputed champions. So there's that. I know you're familiar with. I left 105. We're going to move to 108. Sorry, Kenshiro Taraji.
Yep.
Is a name. All right. As far as I'm concerned, we could go up through this one as well. Same philosophy.
No, I've got ones for this division. I know the junior flyweights.
All right, good.
The first one you could obviously do is which I actually think is a fight that's going to be scheduled next, is Kenshiro Taraji versus Jonathan Gonzalez, free belt unification.
There you go.
I would also, if that's the case, then I would like to see Sivi Nshinga take on Hiroto Kiyoguchi, who Taraji just beat for the WBA title. That would be a good.
That was a tremendous matchup.
Very good match. And then after that, or if we couldn't make that one, I wouldn't mind Hiroto Kiyoguchi fighting Masamichi Yabuki, who's the only person that actually beat Kenshiro for the belt last year, and Kenshiro rematched him and beat him to reclaim it. So that's three fights I wouldn't mind seeing.
Yeah, I mean, you see Kiyoguchi. I mean, he's dropped down with the WBC rankings. He's at number 3 right now. But yeah, I mean, he's still right there in the mix as far as I'm concerned. And the other matchups there, I agree with as well. Nshinga, I believe, is South African.
Yeah,
and Kenshiro Taraji, I mean, he's already established his greatness. Get any of those guys in the mix, and these are fights I want to see. What I got to say again about these lower divisions to me is for them to get the name recognition that they're going to want, you got to get unification fights going. All right? Mandatory defenses in these lower weight classes, I'm sorry, they're not really going to be cutting it for most people. We got to get unification fights. I think that's the big priority, in the lower weight classes. Anything to add there, Tony, or can we move up to 112?
Yeah, no, I'm fine to go. I like the kid Taraji. I've seen him fight a few times now. Quite impressed by him. So yeah, move on.
There you go. All right, so 112 pounds is starting to get spicy here. All right, because we've got Julio Cesar Martinez, who moved up to take on Chocolatito and lost. I mean, he was pretty much shut out. And in that time, McWilliams Arroyo became the WBC interim champion. That's actually a decent matchup. I've always been a fan of McWilliams Arroyo, the Puerto Rican. I think he's a very good fighter.
He retired now.
Pardon me?
He retired.
Oh, he retired now. I didn't even know that.
All right. The last injury he retired, so that fight won't happen.
Oh, shoot. So scratch that one. So I'm going to move over to my second matchup then, which is what Tony actually said is one of his matchups that he most wants to see in 2023, which is Sonny Edwards against Julio Cesar Martinez. I mean, sign me up for that. All right. Jesse Rodriguez has already talked about moving back down to 112 pounds. He says he doesn't want to compete in the same division as his brother, which is 115 pounds. That's Joshua Franco, who they believe is going to beat Kazuto Ryoka in Tokyo next week. I don't think that's going to happen, but they're very positive about that matchup. So they're so positive, in fact, that the brother's moving back down in weight because he doesn't want to compete in the same division as Franco. So having said that, sign me up for Jesse Rodriguez against Sonny Edwards. I don't know if they're going to be able to make that, given that Sonny Edwards doesn't fight with DAZN and doesn't fight with Matchroom.
He doesn't have a network, so he can go wherever.
He's a Muslim fighter, right?
Yeah, but I don't think he can travel to the US, so the fight would have to be over here. But what I've heard is they're happy to do that. But Bam Rodriguez is already, his next fight is going to be for the vacant WBO against one of the Japanese guys. I can't remember the name of him now, but that guy's next in line, and he's already been given the
Riku. It's probably Riku Kano.
Maybe
it's probably Riku Kano, because I'm guessing that they're going to be fighting where he's ranked in the WBO. So that would be my guess. But yeah, I mean, he's probably going to win that fight. I honestly don't know all that much about Artem Dalakian, other than he's probably Armenian, given it his name. I haven't seen him fight. One of the things that I've done, guys, to upgrade myself with the boxing content is investing in an IPTV. Because at this point, I'm missing a lot of these fights being out here in the US. They just don't televise them, unfortunately. And it's a lot of work finding streams for these fights, guys. I've done it for every Kazuto Uyoka fight. And even for that, it's a lot of work. So to figure out how to watch Artem Dalakian, other than watching YouTube clips, I'm not really getting a lot of his fights over there. But he does hold a title with the WBA, so his name is in the mix. If Sonny Edwards doesn't get a fight with Jesse Rodriguez, let's get Dalakian a shot. Or, if he doesn't get a fight with Julio Cesar Martinez, let's get Dalakian a shot. Because I want to see undisputed fights in these lower divisions, as I've said already. Tony.
Cool. I'm glad you said what you said. I co-sign everything you said. Let's move on.
Oh, sorry. I think he's going to be facing Christian Gonzalez for the belt.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, number 1 versus number 2 right there in the WBO. So that makes a lot of sense. 1 versus 2 in the WBO. So it looks like he's going up the WBO route, which is very interesting because Jesse Rodriguez is actually the champ.
WBC.
The WBC, right? So that's very interesting to me. It's a weird situation too, because he's kind of their regular champion, if that makes sense. Because they've elevated Gallo Estrada to super champion. Well, not super champion, but what do they call it? Franchise, right?
No, but he's back. He's got the belt again. Basically, he had the franchise title so that he could do the Chocolatito fight. Then that didn't happen.
Versailles.
Yeah, but then he got stripped. Basically, he got stripped of the title when the Chocolatito fight didn't happen next. Jesse became the full champion, but when he vacated it, they put the vacant title on the line back for Gonzalez, Chocolatito, and Estrada. So he's now the full WBC champion again.
There you go. So given that he's the full champion at 115 pounds, I said this earlier, it's in my wish list. It's one of my top 5 fights, actually. I want to see Kazuto Uyoka, the WBO champ. Yes, I think that he's going to unify against Joshua Franco, the WBA champ. They're fighting next week. You guys should all check that fight out. All right. It's going to be a New Year's Eve fight in Tokyo, which is going to be like the day before that for most of us. We've got Joshua Franco against Kazuto Uyoka. I think Kazuto Uyoka's got that. I want to see Kazuto Uyoka against Gallo Estrada. Failing that, I want to see him against Puma Martinez. What Puma Martinez did to capture the IBF belt from Jerwin Ancajas, who at that time had the longest title reign of any champion at 115 pounds, was very impressive. I was very impressed by Puma Martinez in those fights. He's aligned with the PBC now, I believe. He's a Samson Lekowitz fighter, I'm pretty sure. Most of Samson's fighters fight on PBC. He teams up with Tom Brown a lot for his promotions. Give me that fight right there. Those are the fights I want to see. At this point, if he can't get one of those, Kazuto Uyoka, I guess try to get a Gonzalez, but Gonzalez has a lot of business ventures in Nicaragua. He's heavy in real estate, and he's made it quite clear that he's only gonna continue fighting for monster paydays.
Okay. So these are kind of the weights. I do watch quite a few of these. So
Same.
let me give you 2 fights, because forget the champions for a moment, because look, we all want unifications.
Yeah.
Owen Estrada, yep, and Martinez. I would like to see, since we've had so many trilogies, I would like to see the Chocolatito Gonzalez versus Sarisfikat Sorong trilogy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I feel like Chocolatito deserves a win in that, because everyone thinks that he won the first fight, having been screwed, taking the rematch, obviously getting knocked out very viciously in the rematch when he wasn't himself in that fight either. That kind of just derailed a lot of things for him. I feel like just to have that get back, or the chance to say you got a win over your, like, maybe your biggest rival, or the person that sort of stopped all of your momentum, I think that would be a good little swan song if he had that as his final fight. But also a fight I want to see is Junto Nakatani against Kosei Tanaka.
Yes,
I'd love to see.
That is such a good fight. And I'm so happy you mentioned that, because I was going to list Tanaka as a fight I want to see. Tanaka Ioka was a mega promotion in Japan. And Tanaka obviously felt short that night. I mean, he just got rocked repeatedly by hooks by Kazuro Ioka. He had him kind of walking in the counter punches. But let's not get it twisted. This is a multi-divisional world champion. He's one of the best that Japan has to offer still. He was like the wonder kid going into that fight. I believe he was favored to beat Ioka in that fight as well.
I picked Ioka, by the way. I just want to point out.
Okay, yeah, so did I. But Kosei Tanaka against Junto Nakatani, bro, that's a mega fight.
Yeah.
That's a mega fight. And the winner of that fight launches himself into like championship status right there, I think. So I co-sign that one big time. Good one, Base. Good one. Definitely. Any other matchups that you'd want to see down there? Do you guys consider Andrew Maloney a necessary watch in this division still?
Not necessary, but he's in good fights for the most part.
He's a player.
But Tony, any for this, or you wait until you get to the higher weights?
Yeah, no, I think you guys have covered it pretty well. You've mentioned all the movers and shakers in the division. If Ioka gets through Franco, then I could see him potentially moving up and trying to nick something up at the next division up, the Super Bantamweight.
Yeah, well, this is a quite interesting
Super Bantamweight.
Bantamweight is a very interesting division right now, and the reason being is that, as you guys can see on the screen, hopefully, there's one face, one name, one champion. That's the monster Inoue, but apparently he's vacating the belts. So I mean, because of that, it really opens things up for some of the other fighters. A major one for me being Emmanuel Rodriguez, who, if people remember going into the first fight the only fight with the monster Inoue, I mean, he was highly touted. I'm talking about the Puerto Rican. He was undefeated at the time. He had, signature wins with power, all right, because he was known for hitting hard in addition to having good boxing skills. He hasn't gone away. He's still in the division. And once these titles vacate, I think that he's definitely got to make a name for himself in the division. I'll be honest with you, too. Another name that I want to see is the former WBO champion, who I really felt was hard done by with the whole Paul Butler situation. I mean, how do you lose your fight on a sauna? Can you guys explain that to me?
Yeah, so basically,
Casimiro, by the way, like, how the hell do you lose your title on a sauna?
Yeah, in the UK, there's a rule that states that you're not allowed to use saunas for the purpose of weight drain within fight week, because it's viewed as, it means that basically you're holding too much weight on yourself, and it's a dangerous tactic. It causes brain
fluid on the
brain fog and things like that. So he was overweight and was using the sauna to try and get off the last bits of weight. And stupidly, he put out a picture to someone, and then that picture got sent to the BBBOC, and then it was like, well, no, you can't do that. Well, that's in the rules. And so then, yeah, they stopped the fight from happening. Because they stopped the fight from happening, the WBO stripped him, because that was his mandatory, and he wasn't able to fulfill the mandatory on the date that was agreed. So that's how it happened.
There you go. So there's that. I think a big thing that I need to fully understand, to comprehensively give my thoughts on the 118-pound division, is what is Nonito Donaire doing here?
He's moving down to 115.
I think that because he's ranked, but I mean, that's insanity. What is he doing?
He wants to fight. He wants to fight Estrada.
I mean, what is he doing?
He wants another weight division.
Have you heard of this?
Why not?
Yeah, weight division. That's what he wants.
This is a guy who went all the way up to 126 pounds, right? Fought in the World Boxing Super Series, came back down, fought at 118, and now at the advanced age of 40 is going down to 115 to fight?
Why not? If you can do it, I mean, you got to realize the weights at those levels, those 3 pounds are just not a huge amount to lose. And if you know you can lose that, you know, look, he done what he needs to do at bantamweight. You know, he's had it all. He's been to the mountaintop. So he's going, look, I can do something else here. You know, I'm 40 years old. Well, let me try something different.
I mean, let me try to dehydrate myself and get my ass knocked out because I'm going to be like a walking dead. You know, I mean, I just don't get that. And I guess we got to factor him in then and revisit the 115 pounds, because he did say that. I'll be honest, though, I'm not dying to see Nonito at 115. I'm just not. I would have been more interested to see him against the likes of Jason Maloney or even Inoue's brother, Takuma Inoue, or against Casimero. They had that beef going on. Remember, Casimero insulted his wife?
Yep.
But do we not have to think about the fighter himself? I mean, I know, you know, in the heavier weights, you know, we've seen champions go and box as old as 50, but you know, let's be honest, like, this guy's 40 years old. You know, I just kind of think you've got to say, come on, you know, the last fight just didn't go well for you. Maybe it's just time to hang up the gloves. I mean, I love Nonito Donaire. You know, he's given me some of my greatest nights of pleasure in the world of boxing. But, you know, at 40 years old, literally, you know, I'm like, please, call it a day.
Well, I mean, look, he's still coherent. He's still very active. Yeah, the last fight, but he was fighting the best fighter in the world in those divisions. Let's be real. So, I mean, that one doesn't tell you what he's got left in the tank. That was just, you got caught by the biggest puncher in the division and down at those weights. So now the test would be what happens in the next fight. That's when you decide if you've still got it or not.
I guess so. So yeah, I mean, if he's going to be doing that, it is what it is. You know, I think a chink in the mix of the 115 pound fight for Chocolatitos, I think Rungvisai's actually moved up to 118. Maybe he'll be lured back to 115. So 115, 118 is kind of a crossover division, if you ask me. I mean, a lot of these guys can move up to 118. I personally, I would rather see, if Nonito wants to stay in the mix, stay at 118, try to fight again for a title against a Casimero. Maybe they can get that sanctioned, if not a Jason Maloney. But to me, it's looking like the fights that will likely happen are Jason Maloney against Emmanuel Rodriguez. I mean, they're ranked close to each other in the WBC. They're right next to each other in the WBO. They're two guys that were highly touted, but guess what? They stepped up to take on a generational talent in Inoue and got stopped. There's no shame in that. I think that both of those guys can win titles at 118.
No, I wouldn't mind at 118, Maestro.
Yeah.
If possible, because obviously all the belts are now going to get vacated. Nanoya Inoue's got super WBO status, so he guaranteed his title shot up, so he can get rid of all of those belts now. As much as it may not happen, and I know he's very, very small, so it possibly might be a risk, but I wouldn't be mad to see Chocolatito Gonzalez go up to 118, maybe even if it's a catch weight of, say, like 116 or 116 and a half, 117, and fight for one of those vacant belts and try and get his fifth world title just to rubber stamp his first ballot Hall of Fame, which he's already got. Like, there's no questions about that, but it would just increase the legacy even greater. I would love to see that personally.
Yeah, I agree. But the guy I really want to see at 118 now is Emmanuel Rodriguez. I was very impressed with the way he took out Gary Antonio Russell. I don't know if you guys saw that fight out there in the UK.
I was disgusted with how he was screwed against Raymond Gobayo. That's the biggest screw job I've seen.
I was as well. Absolutely. So I want to, just as kind of a Cinderella man type story, you know, I want to see the man get his shot. You know, I don't care if it's against Maloney or against somebody else, but that's the guy I see emerging at 118 pounds in Inoue's absence and ascension over to 122.
Cool.
All right, you guys ready to move up to 122?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
All right, so at 122, all right, the champions, as everybody knows, are Stephen Fulton Jr., he's the WBC, WBO champion. We've also got MJ Akhmadaliev, the WBA, IBF champion. Look, I don't think that unification fight is going to happen. Obviously, I think if it would have happened, it would have already. If it were to happen, it would have already happened. So we kind of have to start looking at different matchups. Luisa Neri still hanging around. Rais Aleem is still hanging around. They're number 1 and 2 in the WBO. I'd actually like to see that fight, personally. Rais Aleem, he's got a karate background. He's been very inactive. He's a guy from the Midwest that relocated over to Vegas. He's known to be a tough guy to deal with at 122 pounds. I'd like to see him. He used to hold the WBA interim title as well, but the WBA got rid of those interim titles because they had like 3 champions in every division, if you guys remember. Interim, regular, you know, they had a gold title at one point, super title. So they got rid of that, but he's still up there. I'd like to see him. I'd also like to see more of Azat Hovhannisyan, who's highly ranked across the board. I actually could see him beating Luis Neri. I actually called Luis Neri's loss, which he was favored. You guys remember the Brandon Figueroa fight when he fought him? I believe he was favored in that fight. I didn't think he was going to win that fight, and he didn't. Look, Luis Neri's still there. I'd like to see him against Azat Hovhannisyan. I don't have a problem with that fight. I'd like to see Rais Aleem in a fight.
Yeah, I'd like to see Aleem versus Tapales, to be honest.
Ali, yeah, that's a good fight as well. Absolutely. Tapales is a good fight as well. I just see realistically, MJ Akhmadaliev is probably going to take on Tapales or Hovhannisyan next, I think. But failing that, yeah, absolutely. Rais Aleem versus Tapales, that would establish a solid number 2 in the division, or number 3 if we're counting Inoue moving up.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, for me,
you mentioned Casemiro coming back last year. John Real Casemiro.
Yeah, I mean, Casemiro's still, like I said before in the 118-pound discussion, Tony, that's a guy I want to see, Casemiro, because I thought that he was hard done by. A lot of people use saunas to lose weight here in the United States. So it's a little weird hearing that he lost his title that way. I understand the scientific fighter safety argument. I do. I just don't know if he even knew that he was breaking any rules. But I guess that's his it's his responsibility, his team's responsibility to know that. But Casimiro definitely in the mix. Put him in there with Rais Salim. I mean, Casimiro, I believe, fought with the PBC before, so it shouldn't be that much of an issue.
Yeah, he's one of theirs. But I would actually have Casimiro against Inoue for the vacant WBO title because Stephen Fulton's not going to fight him.
You know why I love that too? I love that because it erases any doubt that Inoue didn't clear out 118 pounds. Because that was the last name that he kind of didn't get rid of because Butler got the title. So that matchup, instant. My man Base is coming with the knowledge today. Right. Base is also the knowledge, just to let you guys know. All right. So, yeah, I like that one. Sign me up for that. That's a good first fight for Inoue at 122 pounds. Right. And again, it removes all doubt that he didn't face this guy at 118. Yep. Great matchup, Base. That's actually not my number one matchup now, because honestly, I don't think Fulton Jr. Magdaliev's ever going to happen. That's pretty clear right now. Fulton Jr.'s already talked about moving up, so I don't think he's going to take on Inoue. Right. And then with the Magdaliev Inoue fight, it becomes a little bit complicated with the promotional stuff. I think it might become a little bit easier as a unification fight than as an optional defense, right? So,
and then you can get the unification between Inoue if he beats Casimiro with Akhmadaliev. But Akhmadaliev will take the fight. DAZN will happily send him to Japan, and they'll stream the fight as well.
Yes, perfect. So there we go. I think we've resolved the situation at 122. We can have Louis Neri against Azat Ovanesian, okay, for a vacant belt with the WBC. All right. We can have Akhmadaliev take on Tapales in an optional defense. We can have Inoue take on a Casimiro, hopefully, and then we can get to a unification fight. Awesome. All right, I think we're ready to move up to 126. Tony, unless you have any objections here.
No, I'm good with that.
All right. I'm going to let you guys lead off, though, because we've got a lot of UK action here when it comes to Lee Wood and what's going on with his future. Is Lee Wood on your list? I mean, this is obviously old because Josh Warrington just got defeated. So, Luis Lopez is the IBF champ. But Lee Wood, is he must watch for you guys at 126 in 2023?
Yeah.
100%. 100%. His fight with Mickey Conlan is my fight of the year in 2022. So without a doubt, he needs to be back in action. The fact that Mickey Conlan has boxed since and Lee Wood is sitting out there in the bleachers watching on at the moment is criminal.
There you go. And as Puro Sur mentions, we got the most knowledgeable fans here with Maestro, and obviously with the breakdown as well. Big up to the breakdown. Big up to Tony P and Base the Kid for joining us here for this Father Christmas Santa Claus special. This is what we want to see next year in 2023. He makes a great point, Puro Sur. Big up to Puro Sur. Lee Wood was just elevated too. All right. So we don't have to worry about the Leo Santa Cruz nonsense anymore. We can remove Santa Cruz from the discussion at 126. Something that honestly should have happened a very long time ago, if you ask me. So here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see Lee Wood, and I know this is going to be probably easier to make because Lee Wood is also associated with Matchroom. Let's get a unification fight going between Lee Wood and Luis Lopez. You guys good with that?
Yeah, but Lopez is a top-ranked fighter, so you know, Top Rank only send their guys over if they're guaranteed they're gonna win. I don't know if he's 100% sure on that one.
So you think he was confident about Warrington, but might not be as confident about Lee Wood? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and also because you think about it, because he was the mandatory, you know, they done it on DAZN's dime, so you didn't have anything to lose in that aspect for Top Rank. But for them to bring their fighter over for the unification, they're only going to do it if they're 100% sure, because you know that Bob doesn't want to give Eddie anything. So it could happen, and I would definitely want to see it, but I'm not sure if that fight would get made, at least not right now.
Well, this is where politics becomes involved as well, because again, you've got Ray Vargas, who, believe it or not, is my top dog at 126. I'm a big fan of Ray Vargas. I'm a big fan of Nacho Beristain and his style of boxing. All right, everybody always talks about Mexican style, which essentially just means guys going to war. Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, anybody who knows about the great Finito Lopez, he didn't fight in that style. All right. For most of his career, Marquez didn't fight in that style. All right. And neither does Ray Vargas. He is a pure boxer, Ray Vargas. Will he get dirty at times if he has to? And I don't mean dirty as in against the rules. I mean, get down and grit and grind out decisions if he has to. Yes, he will, but he is a pure boxer first and foremost, boxing off of the jab. All of the guys coming out of the Nacho Beristain school out there in Mexico City, they box off the jab. Marquez boxed off the jab. Okay, he boxes off the jab. But he's a PBC fighter, right? So based on that, I see him taking on his #1 mandatory, and I think this will be a very good fight. If it happens, and his #1 contender under the WBC is Brandon Figueroa, a very exciting fighter, a guy who went to war with Stephen Fulton Jr. Still says he won that fight. It was quite a close fight. I don't know if he won it, but obviously beat Luis Neri as well. So sign me up for that fight. If not, now here's my question for you, Base. If not Leo Santa Cruz Lopez, where do you see Lopez going?
I think, you know what I would love to see is Luis Alberto Lopez against Mauricio Lara, because Lara hasn't had his title shot. I think Lara deserves a title shot at this point, and I think Lara's close enough in the IBF rankings where they could possibly petition him to be a mandatory, even though the mandatory is not necessarily going to be called just yet, but I could see that fight potentially getting over the line.
Well, Mauricio Lara's #3. He's behind Kiko Martinez. Is Kiko Martinez still going to go on with his career, guys? He
wants Lee Wood. He wants Lee Wood next, because remember, he beat Jordan Gill for the European the other day, so that's the fight he wants next, and it could possibly be made. But he's gonna. I think they're looking to try and make Kiko Martinez against Nick Ball.
It's not a bad fight. I mean, honestly, I would love to see Mauricio Lara against Kiko Martinez. I mean, you want to talk about Gotti Ward all-action fights? That would be it.
Kiko gets hurt in that fight.
That would be it. Mauricio Lara, he don't play those games, guys.
Yeah, Kiko's too battle-worn for Mauricio Lara. You need to give him someone who doesn't punch as hard or doesn't punch as frequently.
I agree, but that fight would be fireworks for as long as it lasted, and I would pick Lara by spectacular KO. So that's definitely a name I need to see in the mix. I need to see Lara in the mix. Now, Lara, again, here's the deal, because the politics becomes involved. Lopez is a top-ranked fighter. Lara fights with Matchroom. Ray Vargas fights with the PBC. Brandon Figueroa fights with the PBC. Navarrete is moving up to 130. He's the WBO champ right now. Next online there is Isaac Dogbe, who's been fighting with Top Rank. #2 is Brandon Figueroa. #3 is, and I know Tony likes this guy, El Tren, the Train, straight out of Cuba, a fellow Caribbean brother like all of us on the panel. Robesi Ramirez. Robesi. So I see Robesi emerging right now. I see him getting that shot for the vacant title against Isaac Dogbe, because I don't think Brendan Figueroa is going to be fighting for it. I think they're going to position Brandon Figueroa to fight Ray Vargas at 126, keep it in-house with the PBC, which opens up 1 versus 3, both with top rank. I like that fight, Dogbe against Ramirez. I think it's a good battle. Dogbe, you guys know about him. I believe he's from the UK, Ghanaian descent, although he fights a lot out here in the US. I sign me up for that fight. I like that fight for the vacant title at 130. What about you guys?
Yeah. You missed out though. You missed out the guy who was in the fight of the year, Mickey Conlan, because look, this guy was a round away, minutes away from winning the world title against Lee Wood. He's up on the scorecards.
Right, he was, and then he got knocked out, and now he's come back with a solid win. So where does he fit in the mix, though? Because
he has to be in the mix. He is, without a doubt, for me, he's in the top 5.
Make the fight, Tony. We want to hear you make the fight.
Yeah, like we're giving matchups, Tony. We want matchups right now.
I personally, I want a rerun of Woods against Conlan.
Well, that's going to be, that's probably going to be.
You had the fight of the year.
I don't want to be
the most exciting, thrilling dog fight.
I don't want to be.
Yeah. Why would you not run a rerun?
I'd like to see that fight, but here's the deal. At this point, Conlan doesn't have anything to offer Lee Wood. Lee Wood is now the super champ with the WBA. He's looking for unification fights. And if not that, he's probably going to. Actually, does he even need to do mandatories as the WBA super? I don't even think he can just go after unification fights.
He doesn't have to do mandatories as a super, only the regular champ.
There you go. So, it's going to be difficult even for Conlan to force a rematch through that. So Conlan's still going to have to work his way up, I think, Tony.
Well, I think when you have a nation behind you, yeah,
right,
and a network behind you,
right,
yeah, you become a valuable commodity, yeah. Let's see him in against Navarrete. Let's see the rematch. If we can't get him with that, let's get him in with Ray Vargas. This kid, you can't not want to see Mick.
Navarrete is moving
Conlan.
30.
He's bringing the whole of Ireland a boxing. This is a nation which feasts on boxing.
Yeah, I understand that, Tony, but he doesn't have much to offer at this point.
How are you saying that, bro? He was in the fight of the year.
I'll be honest with you, Tony. I'm going to give you the breakdown right now, not the tactics, but the business breakdown. I'm a public school teacher, but I got a little bit of a business acumen myself. All right, and this is what happened. You're talking about how big he is in Ireland and this, that, and the third. When Top Rank signed him and he started his career, almost all of his fights were in New York City. He was fighting on St. Patrick's Day weekend year after year. So, yeah, he's got it behind him, but he's tried to make a name for himself in the United States, and the United States is where the money's at. How many times have guys gone out to Ireland for big fights? You got a couple fights that have happened in Northern Ireland, okay, because of my man that does the BT Sport punditry. Help me out. Former champ at 122.
Oh, Frampton.
Frampton, thank you. They went out to Northern Ireland for Frampton, but when's the last time a big fight has happened in Ireland, Tony?
Bro,
No, correct question. They don't happen in Ireland. That's the answer. So,
but they have a superstar on their hands. Irish people know boxing. They love the sport. Don't forget, this is the country that spawned Barry McGuigan, one of the biggest stars in British boxing in years.
Yeah, again, correct me if I'm wrong. Is he from the Republic of Ireland, or is he from the colony known as Northern Ireland?
Now he's Irish.
Yeah, but he's from Northern Ireland, bro.
Nah, he's from Normal Ireland.
Is he?
In Republic.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not Northern Irish.
All right. Okay. There you go. Anyways, the point of the matter is, Tony, I think we can disagree on this one. We'll let Base chime in here too. I don't see Lee Wood having to go after a rematch with Conlan from a business standpoint. The business for him is going to be unification fights. And for me, if I'm Conlan, what I would do, considering that Conlan's a top-ranked fighter, considering that Lopez is a top-ranked fighter, try to get that work with Lopez, get that title, and then force bring something to the table for Lee Wood. That's the route I would go if I was Conlan. Base.
Yeah, I agree. Because yes, the rematch would do good numbers, but again, because Lee Wood can make more money with other fights right now than that rematch, Conlan's gonna need to create his own path if he wants to run that back and right that wrong.
Tony?
Okay, I'm good with that.
All right, there we go. So we've reached some consensus. All right, there you go. Thomas Patrick Ward. He's actually a UK fighter, although Ward is an Irish name, I believe. So I think he's UK of Irish descent. Maybe we get maybe you could get your UK matchup with that one. I mean, he's ranked number one, I believe, in the WBA. But let's move up to 130 pounds. All right, because it's been interesting here, especially because, all right, it's got some names that might be of interest to people. I'm talking about, okay, Hector Luis Garcia. All right. Hector Luis Garcia, he's the WBA champ. He's moving up to take on Gervonta Tank Davis. I don't think a lot of people are picking him to win that fight. But regardless of if he does win it or not, Tony, I know he's your boy, Tank Davis. It does, elevate his name. And I actually think Hector Luis Garcia, is going to do pretty good in this fight with Tank Davis. He really exposed Chris Colbert as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if you guys saw that fight. He beat Chris Colbert. It was kind of an upset. He captured the vacant WBA title in that one. So he's there. But I think that the name right now, and I'm going to ask you guys about Joe Cordina in a moment, because I'm not quite sure what's going on with Joe Cordina. You guys are from the UK. You got the insight there. I mean, he won the title. He couldn't defend it. He got stripped. I'm hoping to see Joe Cordina come back. But I think
he's scheduled for April. He'll be fighting Rakhimov in April.
Well, there you go. Rakhimov against Joe Cordina for the IBF is definitely a fight that's appealing. Sign me up for that. Oscar Valdez against Navarrete for the vacant WBO. That is appealing. Sign me up for that as well. All right, those are two fights that I'd really like to see. And then when Hector Luis Garcia does end up dropping back down 230 pounds, which is what I think he'll do, then that opens up some fights over there as well. But those are the names I'd like to see. I wouldn't mind seeing Ken Ogawa in some kind of a comeback fight. That was a shocking loss for me, honestly. I was not expecting him to go out like that. I've actually seen Ken Ogawa fight live. In fact, I was at the fight where he won the IBF title. It was on the undercard of Teofimo Lopez against George Kambosos Jr. Eddie Hearn put him on. I think it was the first fight he had with Matchroom. He looked very good. So going into that fight with Cordina, I was not expecting that rapid, brutal knockout. But those are essentially the names I want to see at 130. What about you guys?
I want Valdez. I want to see Valdez against Robson Conceição. That's what I'd like to see.
Rematch, right?
I'd like to see that. I feel like there's unfinished business there.
I actually thought Conceição won that fight personally. And it was very interesting because going into that fight, Valdez was coming off the positive test And there's a little bit of controversy about that too. Shakur's moved up, so that's left some titles vacant. The WBC, WBO. So, Oshiki Foster and Eduardo Fernandez are 1 and 2 with the WBC. Archie Sharp, Oscar Valdez, 1 and 2 for the WBO. But I believe it looks like Archie Sharp is gonna be looked over. What do you guys think of Archie Sharp? I mean, he's out there from England. Any thoughts on Archie?
He's a good prospect. I like Archie.
So you're not giving him the contender status?
Well, okay, the ESC is a contender, but he's more like he's only just sort of crept over. So if he gets looked over now, that's not the worst thing for him. Like, give him a couple more development fights, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
you missed that. I mean, if you're going down that British contender route, you're missing Anti Kakache.
All right. Yeah, I've seen him fight too.
He's had some decent wins in 22.
Yeah. Now, who would we match him up with though that would be appropriate for him? Do you think he's ready for like a Jono Carroll, maybe?
Yeah, easily.
All right, so
easily.
Chris
Colbert.
Yeah, Jono Carroll, but Jono Carroll's ranked higher than Chris Colbert at this point. Chris Colbert dropped. So yeah, that's not a bad fight. Or even seeing him against Ogawa if Ogawa's coming back. What about Ogawa?
Yeah.
All right, so there you go.
Let Kakachi fight Zolfa Barrett. Let him do some work.
Ooh, that's a fight.
Yeah.
Barrett's coming off a loss though too, is he not?
Yeah, but that could be like the fight where you officially announce exactly whether you are that guy or not.
Very good. I like that matchup, babe. All right, let's move up to 135 pounds because this is where it's going to get spicy. All right, I like my food spicy and I like my food with a lot of pepper sauce because I like it hot. All right, and things are definitely potentially hot at 135 pounds. Now, when I made my list at the beginning of the show, you guys will remember that on that list, I wanted to see these two young guns go at it. All right, this is from when they were a lot younger, but now they're grown men. All right. I want to see Shakur versus Gervonta Tank Davis. I don't know if we're going to get that. We'll see. But I think what we definitely will get, or likely get, is Devin Haney against Vasyl Lomachenko. I want to see that fight. You guys in agreement?
Yeah.
Although I really want Devin to move up. He does not look good at 135. And they said that he said he wanted to fight by March, and they've said they're trying to push it to like May or June. But that's obviously after like Ramadan and stuff. So I think if the fight doesn't happen by March before Ramadan, if I was him, I would say, you know what, screw it. I'll get WBO super status, vacate the belts and move up. Now I wouldn't, and say, you give me my fight at 140 or let me out the contract.
Now, when you guys say he looked bad it looks bad at 135, I agree with you on the scale. In the ring, I don't think he looked bad at all against George Gambosis Jr. in the rematch.
He doesn't look bad in the ring, but the problem, here's the thing, that number one, obviously he's just so much better than George. He doesn't have to be 100% to beat him. That's the first thing.
George Gambosis beat himself in that fight. Don't forget, our breakdown of that fight was all about how bad George was boxing with that terrible switch hitting style. You know, that was awful.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. But my point being, Devin didn't have to be 100% for that. But with every month, with every year that's going by, him going back down to 135, you can tell it's been draining his body since 2019. So imagine what it's doing now. That's my point. So even though he can still win a Lomachenko fight, I just think health-wise, it's probably, if he can't get it when he wants, because remember, he's going to have to starve himself for a month for Ramadan anyway. And then if you're not eating throughout the day, then just eating at night, that's going to store weight on you, which is going to be a lot harder to shift. There's a lot of variables there. So I'm just like, if he doesn't get it when he wants it, I would just say, you know what? I've got one fight, or you've got option on my last fight. I'm moving to 140. the belts are gone. Apart from I'm doing super champion status. Give me my fight at 140 or let me out the contract and I'll go elsewhere and apply my trade elsewhere. That's just what I would do because health is more important than that last fight to me.
Let me ask you a question, guys. And I'm not talking about on the scale. The Devin Haney that got into the ring against Gambosis in the rematch, does he beat the Lomachenko that got into the ring in the Hulu at Madison Square Garden against Jermaine Ortiz? Yes or no?
Yes.
No.
Wow.
I'll tell you why I say no. Because if you look, even though obviously he did what he needed to do against George, he made that fairly comfortable. But if you even see the few times he got touched, skin split open quite easily because there's not enough fluid. So imagine if someone like Loma, who's got, you know, all of this, who's a front foot pressure fighter basically at 135 because he hasn't got the size as one, so he has to stay up close. If he's going to be constantly hitting and marking you up and busting you up, and everyone's talking about whether Devin's actually got a good chin or not, there's just a lot of variables there. So if you take another 6 months out from where you were previously, and then you're trying to bring yourself back down, I just don't think the energy is going to be there. The one from the first fight, yes, I agree with the first one. Second one, I don't know. I just don't. I don't like it. Like I said, if it's in March, do it. I think you've got enough in that. But if it's after that, after Ramadan and all that stuff, I just think it's going to be too much. Personally,
I personally don't have a worry about the marking up because I don't think Lomachenko hits hard enough. I think, you know, Devin's style causes huge problems for an aging Lomachenko. Had we been talking about Lomachenko a couple of years ago, we might have been having a different conversation. But we've seen recently that Lomachenko has become, you know, really not that difficult to hit. I think the fact that we saw Franklin do such a good job against Lomachenko, and if you're comparing Franklin with Devin Haney,
who's Franklin?
It's just.
Who's Franklin?
Who's
Franklin?
So I can't hear what you're saying, Base.
So who's Franklin? You said Franklin did a job on Lomachenko. Who's Franklin?
I think
I'm mixing Jermaine Franklin with Jermaine Ortiz.
Yeah, okay. I inferred. So yeah, look, guess what? If Devin the Dream Haney moves up to 140, which I don't think is a bad idea. I got a great name for him at 140. We could talk about it when we get there. That's Teofimo Lopez. As Tim Bradley said, that's dog food at this point. Dog food. Okay, for Devin Haney and the other guys at 140. But yeah, sign me up for Shakur against Lomachenko. Sign me up for that. I'd love to see that fight. Shakur against Lomachenko. You know, these other guys, honestly, I'm not even going to mention them really other than William Zepeda. Like, I'd like to see William Zepeda against maybe a George Gambosis. I thought that
Frank Martin.
He's going to fight Rolly Romero next.
Yeah, he's fighting Rolly Romero next. And honestly, I still see Rolly as a novice boxer that has a lot of power. That's how he fights to me. This guy had
Frank Martin deals with him.
Yeah.
Frank Martin's a problem child for that lightweight division.
Big time. And I don't even want to really talk about Isaac Cruz, bro, because Isaac Cruz, he had an opportunity to fight Shakur and he didn't want it. I mean, he doesn't want that fight. So who do you want to fight, Isaac? You know, I guess you're looking at like what, Gustavo Lemos or somebody? I'm not really understanding. Or maybe Isaac was hoping that Michel Rivera was going to beat Frank Martin. I'm not too sure what's on Isaac's plan, what's on his plate right now in terms of his plans. But I'm a big fan of William Zepeda. I like him a lot.
I mean, if I was to have a fight, I would like to see Zepeda versus Cruz because you've got, you know, the heavy volume puncher of Zepeda with
a great fight.
Yeah, the pressure fighting of Isaac Cruz. That would be a shootout. That would be a good fight, but it will never happen. So
that's what I was about to say. That's why I didn't want to mention. I think that's a great fight in the lightweight division, but
I try not to mention PBC guys as much as I can, unless it's against other PBC guys.
Yeah, that's the problem. Zepeda's with Golden Boy, and obviously Isaac Cruz is with the PBC. And, you know, I used to call it the Mayweather protection plan. I don't know what protection plan this is. I don't know who they want him to fight. It's almost as if they're setting up a Tank Davis rematch. Like, let's get to Ryan Garcia, maybe. I don't even know if that's happening. And by the way, I struggle to even mention Ryan Garcia at 135 because he's no longer a 135-pound fighter. His last fight was at 140, and the proposed fight with Tank Davis is supposed to be at a catch weight.
Yeah, 136. So
yeah, so it's like I'm not even including him. So look, those are the fights I think. Devin Haney versus Loma. If that doesn't happen, Loma versus Shakur for Devin Haney's vacated title. I'd love to see Davis, Davis against Shakur. I don't know if that's going to happen. And unfortunately for guys like William Zepeda, I mean, everybody else is going to be tough to get because there's a lot of PBC guys in the mix, right? And, you know, I don't know, maybe Zepeda could get a George Gambosis fight, although I don't really think that's enough money for George Gambosis. I almost feel like George Gambosis is going to stay in the game for only big money fights. Personally, I don't really know. But we'll see. Let's move up to 140, all right, because we're getting closer to the end of the show. 140, we've only got a couple guys that are listed as champions in the division. I still consider Josh Taylor to be the undisputed champion, personally. He has not been beat in the ring. To be the man, you've got to beat the man. And Catterall did not beat the man. But you know what? Catterall
is the people's champion, bro.
Catterall's getting his rematch, okay? And I don't know how anyone at this point can hate on Josh Taylor. What he did in under 20 fights to become undisputed against the names that he did it against, Ramirez, Prograis, Postal, and others, you got to give the man his flowers. He's one of the best in the sport doing it. He had an off night coming off of shoulder surgery in a rescheduled fight.
It was knee. It was a knee injury.
Sorry, thank you. He's doing the rematch. He's gone to the extent of vacating belts in order to make sure that the rematch happens because the sanctioning bodies weren't going to force it. So big up to Josh Taylor. All right.
Hold on. Before we give him praise, real quick, and I'm going to brush because I got to shoot off in about half hour.
Yeah.
With regards to the sanctioning bodies and giving up the belts, he gave up one because of a wedding, or was it two of them because of the wedding? The third one he didn't have to give up. He could have fought that mandatory and been active this year. He didn't. Remember, he hasn't fought since February, so he could have fought one of those mandatories, kept one of his belts. He may even be able to fight twice and then still be fighting in March and fight Catterall again. Like, they didn't have to be sitting out of the ring for 13 months. So I don't agree with he gave up the belt so this rematch could happen, because it's not like it's happened within the same calendar year.
You're right. I mean, there's some valid points there. And I think you're talking about the Aborto Puello,
that was the first one, and that was because he was getting married. So I can appreciate that one, but he didn't have to give up all the belts. He could have kept the last one and had a fight at the end of the year at least.
There you go. So fights I want to see: Ramirez against Prograis, although it doesn't sound like Ramirez wants it because of the split situation. So I don't know if that's going to happen. The problem with Prograis is he's not signed to a major promoter. He's signed to Pro Bellum. So it's going to be up to the other promoters to come up with the money to pay Prograis and pay their house fighter. We'll see if they come up with it. Otherwise, it's going to be him just defending his title against Mandos. I actually want to see Josh Taylor Catterall. And like I said, the other fight I'd want to see if Haney moves up is Haney against Teofimo, because I think that's going to be a wrap for the takeover at that point. I got Haney doing the business there. And my sleeper in this division, guys, I'm going to mention him, and I'd like to see him against everybody out there. I'm talking about Subriel Matias.
Yeah, I was going to mention him. I think Subriel Matias against like a Jose Zapata as a next fight, or even maybe as I'm saying Gary Antoine Russell, that could be the one.
That's a really good one.
Yes, Gary
I
Antoine
was
Russell.
just going to mention Gary Antoine Russell.
But you weren't going to give us a fight, though, was you?
I was going to give you Arnold Barboza.
Well, that's a tough one to make, Tony, because Barboza's a top-ranked guy. Gary Antoine Russell's PBC.
And then your promotions, Tony, man. You got to learn your promotions.
The problem with Barboza... It's all good. Barboza was calling out Teofimo, but Teofimo, your boy, the takeover, didn't want that smoke. So, I mean, that was another one of those fake over situations because he moved over to take on a guy that he was obviously going to beat in Sniper Pedraza, who really hasn't looked all that great, recently. Couldn't get past a lightweight in his last fight. Then Sandor Martin stepped in. Let's move up to the welterweight division. Let's speed it up a little bit because I know we got to get going. All right, welterweight division, obviously Crawford has got the WBO. Errol Spence Jr. has got the 3 other belts. If Errol Spence Jr. does not get the Crawford fight and vice versa, do they just move up? Do you guys see them taking on these mandatory defenses, Tony?
It probably happens, but I don't want it.
So you see Errol Spence taking on Stanionis.
Don't want to see it.
Or you don't want to see it?
He needs to take on Boots is what he needs to do.
Yeah, IBF title of Boots is next up online. So, I mean, luckily Virgil Ortiz and Stanionis are going to fight. That's a great fight. And all credit to Golden Boy because they came out with the big bag to secure that fight. The big bag. They beat out all competitors in terms of the purse bid on that one. They beat out the PBC. So, and by the way, they did that knowing that they'd have to pay Stanionis more than they're paying Virgil Ortiz, even though Virgil Ortiz is a much bigger name at this point. But Stanionis, being the Reggie belt holder, got that favorable split. Sign me up for that fight. I'm looking forward to it.
Can I give you a fight?
Go for it.
Can I get your Dennis Ugas against Cody Crowley?
Oh, we saw Cody Crowley come up in the chat earlier. That's a good fight. That's kind of a promotion relegation fight as far as I'm concerned. I like those kind of fights. Cody Crowley is actually very good. I've had the pleasure of interviewing Cody Crowley, a very knowledgeable guy, and he's another plant-based brother like myself, and I know you're plant-based too, Tony. So I always give an extra little to my plant-based guys. All right. I mean, is Keith Thurman any would a Keith Thurman Yordenis Ugas fight appetize satiate the palate? No? Okay. So we can move. Oh, there is one guy that I want to mention. Again, another sleeper in the division. I actually like Alexis Rocha. All right. And I would have liked to see Alexis Rocha against a Conor Benn because they were both DAZN fighters. Rocha being with Golden Boy, Ben being with DAZN Matchroom. But it don't look like I mean, he said he's cleared his name. I haven't seen the clearance yet.
You say that one. Funny enough, I said last year, earlier on this year, sorry, on the breakdown, Tony could back me up. I said I want to see Conor Benn against what's his name? Hold on. What's Mr.
Blair the Flair?
The Flair Cobbs, yeah, that's the fight I want to see. Just entertainment standpoint.
I think he knocks out Blair the Flair.
He might do, but the build-up, I want to see it for the build-up purposes.
Well, it depends if he's on that sauce or not, Is he going to be on that sauce or is he not going to be on that sauce?
Well, either way, the build-up is where the fun is, not the actual fight.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Blair the Flair. Cobbs. But did you see what Rocha did to Cobbs?
Yeah, that was a good fight. I enjoyed that.
That was a great fight, and I would love to see Conor Benn against Alexis Rocha if he does come back. I think that's a good fight. All
Also,
right.
the last fight I think that I would want to see in that division is I'd actually like to see Solomon Sissoko against one of the other up and coming guys, whether that's maybe even if it's a Radza Butayev, for instance.
Overrated. Overrated.
No, that's where you get it. You find out exactly what the level is.
Go, dude. His name's ringing because he's aligned himself with Joshua. He's on that 258 management plan. But for a guy who's where he's at in his career, over 30 years old, like, I'm just not getting the hype. I'm sorry.
No, that's cool. But I'm saying this is where you get that chance to prove if you're at that level or not. So whether he's overrated or not is let him have the opportunity. That's what I'll say.
There you go. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Can I just say also, I'm looking forward to a fight that's already matched up on the was it the 7th of January, which is Rashidi Ellis against Romain Villa.
I'm a big fan of Rashid. Well, I wouldn't say a big fan, but I respect Rashidi Ellis a lot, actually. I think he's a really good fighter. And it's funny
Lost
because
his way a couple of years, but now I'm looking forward to the comeback.
people don't mention his name. I'm talking about other fighters, and that always says something to me. His name's not ringing like that. But
Inactivity killed it, really.
yeah, it did. It did. Let's move up to 154 pounds. All right, we got the undisputed super welterweight champion of the world, Charlo. All right, he's taking on Tim Tszyu. That's a great matchup. I like that matchup.
I love it.
It's funny because Kostya Tszyu, short for Konstantin Tszyu, all right, the Asiatic Russian, all right. I was a huge fan of his when I was growing up, bro. I mean, I remember he made Zab Judah do that little chicken dance.
James Brown.
He made him do the stanky leg. Then he got up, then he fell down again. Then Judah went after Jay Nady, right, with the stool and was with the little forearm choke. Judah wasn't happy that night, but young Maestro was happy because I've always been a huge fan of Kostya Tszyu, and to see his son doing it big like this, right? We talk a lot about Conor Ben. We talk a lot about Chris Eubank Jr., but to be honest, Kostya Tszyu was a way better fighter than those seniors. I'm just keeping it real right now. Kostya Tszyu was a better fighter than Eubank Sr., was a better fighter than Ben Sr. And his son, we'll see. What? You're going like this on Kostya? You're going like that on Kostya Tszyu?
Kostya Tszyu over Chris Eubank Sr.
Kostya Tszyu. When were they undisputed? He was undisputed anyhow. The point is, this is going to be fireworks, guys. And you know what? The funny thing is, Tim Tszyu's already in the U.S. He's been training here for weeks. He's fully invested in winning this fight. And you know what the funny thing is? This is going to be the first fight that his father attends, I believe, since his pro debut. So his father's fully invested in this fight. I can't wait. It would have been on my list for next year, but it's already signed. It's already happening. So I don't need Santa Claus to bring me this fight. I don't need Father Christmas to put that into a nice little gift box, right? Wrap it up and put that bow on top and stick it down the chimney because we already getting it. So I'm very excited about this fight. And of all of the fights I would have actually wanted to see in this fight, in this division, this is the one. So, and it's happening. So I don't know. Are there any other matchups that you're dying to see at 154?
Not dying, but Tony Harrison against Fundora has been ordered and apparently accepted. So that would be interesting. But I'd actually like to see Fundora against Castano.
That's a good fight as well.
I'd like to see that.
That's a good fight. I'll throw in another fight that I would have wanted to see because I like it. I like guys that are in the inside that go for it, and they're both at 154, and they're both very good inside fighters. One of them isn't going to happen, and it would have been Danny Garcia against Liam Smith, but Liam Smith is moving up in weight to fight Eubank Jr. But sign me up for Danny Garcia against Brian Castano if they can make that fight. That's a good fight. You know, I'm a big fan of Danny Garcia's style of boxing. You know, he came up short against Errol Spence Jr., but he's moved up. And I think that the Castaño matchup is a good matchup for him because Castaño's not a big 154-pounder, and he's a former world champion. What do you guys think of Castaño and Danny Garcia?
It's a good fight. It's a
I think
decent fight.
Castaño's too big for him.
You think so, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if Castaño's too big for him, then everybody's too big for him at 154. Let's face facts.
If you're talking about like an inside fight, it's definitely he'd have to box in that fight like he did in his previous one.
Yes.
Jose Benavidez
Jr.
Yeah.
Jose Benavidez Jr. Okay, moving up to 160, guys. Look, Triple G's still unified. He retained his titles because obviously they weren't on the line against Canelo in the trilogy fight. Okay. And Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and Happy New Year to everybody in the chat as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hit that like button for us. And if you're dropping a comment on the on-demand, do that as well. All right. And again, I'm going to have the description for where you can catch Base and Tony P. All right. Both on the Undefeated pod channel and on Base the Kids channel. Tony P, you still have do you have an active channel again? Or I know you used to.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to post yours too. Just put it in the private chat for me.
Yeah. Just Pugilist Boy.
Pugilist Boy. There you go. All right. So moving on to 160. Honestly, I would have liked to see the passing of the torch fight between Janibek and Triple G, but apparently Janibek won't fight one of his elders. You know, whatever. I don't really understand that personally. But this division is like wide open, honestly. Jermel,
some killers in there.
There are, and I'm gonna keep it realistic with the promotional outfits. Jermel Charlo against Carlos Adames. There's no reason that fight shouldn't happen. They're both PBC fighters. Okay. Jermel Charlo against Eris Lara, WBA regular champion.
Is Adames not top rank?
Huh?
He's PBC. It's Jamal Charlo.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Jamal Charlo against Carlos Adames should happen. It's a fight I'd like to see. Jamal Charlo against Erislandy Lara. Again, there's no reason that fight shouldn't happen. They're both with the PBC. Those are two possible matchups. Jaime Munguia against Triple G. There's no reason that fight shouldn't happen. They're both aligned with DAZN. One with Matchroom, the other with a Golden Boy. I'm
honestly sick to death of listening to people talking about Jaime Munguia now.
Well,
I'm
it's
literally
put up or shut up, Tony, in 2023. It's put up or shut up. All right, because if he doesn't fight somebody credible in 2023, I'm doing.
Bro, we've been talking about credible fights for this kid since we've been talking about Crawford Spence 4 years ago, and we're still waiting. I'm tired. I'm done.
I got another potential fight that I'm going to throw out there for you guys. If Chris Eubank Jr., who is become a hilarious person to watch with his troll game, becoming quite the fan of Chris Eubank Jr., at least in terms of his troll game. A Triple G, Chris Eubank Jr., live at the O2 Arena. It was supposed to happen years ago. When was that? 2015, 2016? I don't remember the exact year. But Kell Brooks stepped in for that fall matchup and got a broken orbital bone. I'd still like to see that fight because if Triple G's going to hold on to these titles, you got to fight somebody. All right. Any other matchups at 160 that you guys would like to see?
I've got one, and only just because I'd like to see how it works out. I'd actually like to see Janibek against Ryota Murata in Japan.
That's a good fight.
I'd like to see that.
That's a very good fight. And it would give Murata a chance to become a two-time. I'm not going to say three-time because I don't count the regular belt. Tony would probably count it because Tony loves regular titles. But in Tony's world, it would be a three-time middleweight champion. In my world and in Base's world, it would be a two-time. So that's appealing just off that as well. And you know that fight would do big business in Japan, where over 100 million Japanese people tune in live to watch this man fight.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. Good one, Base. Another good matchup there. Any other matchups at 160, Tony, before we move up? We've almost...
Yeah, I would like to see the winner of Liam Williams and Chris Eubanks fight Amal Williams.
That's not a bad fight.
Yeah, but they're not going to fight a prospect.
But I was just about to say, as a boxing match, I'd watch it. Business side, Tony, I do not see that happening. I mean, Eubank Jr. has nothing to gain from taking that. And my guess is
the loser, not the winner.
Yeah, Liam Smith is probably not staying at 160. My guess is he's going back down where he's ranked. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, look, we got another nice comment over here. Look at that. Got big up. People recognizing the real knowledge. What can I say? You know? What can I say? Anyways, back to it. I think we can move up to 168. I've already said what I need to see at 168.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to see at 168 is this fight. David Morrell Jr., the WBA regular title list, taking on David Benavidez, the WBC interim title list. All right. Those guys fight each other. All right. I don't think Caleb Plant is beating David Benavidez, obviously. So that's why I'm not even including that as part of the analysis. All right. The winner of that fight makes a strong case for Canelo fighting them at the end of the year. All right. They've got to do some work. They've got to get some big wins. And that would be a big win for either of those two guys. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
already. So
yeah. Any other fights? John Ryder.
I'd like to see
John Ryder. We talked about that already.
I'd like to see David Morrell fight Edgar Berlanga.
I'd like to. Yeah.
That's repetitive.
I mean, I'd love to see that fight too, because at the end of the day, it's put up or shut up time for Berlanga. Berlanga's actually older than David Morrell Jr., if you can believe that. The difficulty with that fight is that if there is a difficulty for that fight, it's that Berlanga's a top-ranked fighter. But honestly, you get to the point with Top Rank, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, where Top Rank is like, okay, man, we've built you up as big as we could big you up. Now it's time to fight somebody. And if it's swim or drown, it's sink or swim. And
Top Rank will work with people as well.
Yeah, if and it's like, yo, you think you that dude? Okay, here, you got a regular title shot. Go get it with Morrell Jr. And if he doesn't, well, that's the end of Berlanga.
I'd rather see Berlanga against Carlos Gongora.
I mean, the IBO title. No, is he?
Not anymore. But that to me would be the would tell you whether or not he's got anything in him.
I mean, but we've already seen these fights. We already know that he doesn't have it, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I was there live for the Steve Rolls fight. If he had it, he would have done the business against Steve Rolls. He didn't. And then the fight after that, I couldn't go, so my man Kenny T took my place. Okay, because I went down to Mexico that weekend with my wife. All right, and he bit his opponent. Remember that? So it's like you've had two bites at the apple, and in the second fight, he actually took the bite at the apple. So we're done trying to see if this guy is the man or he isn't. Let's go get him in there. You know, I'm actually co-signing Tony right now. I want to see David Morrell Jr. against Edgar Berlanga, all right? And I want to see him, the winner of that fight, which will be David Morrell Jr., take on David Benavidez. Hopefully in the summer. That's what I want to see.
Okay.
I want to see. We're seeing another matchup here from Team Batman. Okay, it says, listen, Berlanga would be a fool to step in with Morrell though, he would get dismantled. Yeah, well, if he's the dude, he's the dude, right? Berlanga versus Bektamir. Oh, Beck the Bully. That's not a bad one. Berlanga against Beck the Bully, because Beck the Bully has that shock loss knockout to Gabe Rosado. But the problem with that is it's cross promotional, and I don't think the stakes are big enough there for them to sacrifice the lamb, so to speak. I think that the stakes are big enough with a WBO regular title to proverbially sacrifice the lamb. I see. So let's move up to 175, because I know Base got to go. He's and I know it's getting late for you too, Tony. So for me, I mean, there's one fight that needs to happen here, and it's this one. We all agreed on it at the beginning of the show. It was all on our lists at the beginning of the show. That's the fight that needs to happen. I'm going to give you guys some fights underneath that I would like to see.
And before you do that, let me give you my one.
Yeah.
Callum Smith against Zurdo Ramirez.
Bam! I like that one. I was going to give another one that I was actually looking forward to or hoping that can be made, because they're both Matchroom DAZN fighters, and they're both in the UK. Battle of the UK, Callum Smith versus Joshua Buatsi. Why the hell not? Why the hell not? Right? They're both ranked. They're ranked 1 and 2 in the WBC under Artur Beterbiev. They both got big names. All right, in the UK. One of them has even fought a Canelo in a unification fight. If Joshua Buatsi's the man, well, he should have the confidence to step up to the plate and take on a Callum Smith if he's the man. All right, if he's not the man, then I guess we got to see him against, I don't know. Who would we want to see him against if he's not the man?
Let's see.
Padraig McCrory, somebody like that. Fei Long Meng, somebody like that. Like, we don't need to see those fights right now. Get him in there with Smith. That's what I want to see. I'd also like to see Dan Aziz get into the mix too, by the way.
He's going European route. He wants to stick at the British till he wins it outright. He's got one more fight there, but he wants to do European, and then from European move to world. He wants to do it the correct way for him.
Quickly before we move on to the Cruiserweight division, that sounded like you don't think that the emptying the tank approach and skipping all of that and going straight to emptying the tank in a world title fight is the way to go. Is that what you're kind of alluding at there, Base?
Much. It makes sense. You do things the right way, know where your level is, and build yourself up so that when you get to that level, you've got extra tools in the tool bag to be able to use in crisis.
Yeah, I agree with Base, Tony. I don't know about you, but this whole strategy of fighting like no-name opponents, including guys with upside-down records, and then going out of that domain to take on Artur Beterbiev for 3 titles, that's like a kamikaze mission. I think, personally, Yard would have been better off going the Dan Aziz route, personally. What about you, Tony?
Well, this is one that we've talked so much about Yard, but Beterbiev over the past few months. It's actually just, let's just get it on. Let's just see. As far as where Dan Aziz is with an 18-0 record, and looking at his very short amateur pedigree, I think he's doing absolutely the right thing. He's working with the right people. He's putting in the hard work. He's working with iron sharpening iron. I think, the European stroke, trying to get Lyndon Arthur in for a fight is a great route for him. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty certain Callum Smith Buatsi has to be the fight to make in 23, just because they're both in Matchroom, and we do need to see Buatsi in against credible domestic competition, as well as trying to pursue Dimitri Bivol, which is what Eddie Hearn is trying to do.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, I don't know what the excuse would be at this point for Buatsi not to take on Smith. I mean, what's the reason here? Right? You were supposedly going to take on Jean Pascal. That fell through, whatever. I mean, this is your domestic level opponent who, by the way, is also a world-class fighter. Take care of business. Establish yourself. That person would come out of that fight with a clear case to be next on line for the winner of Better Be against Bivol. That's my opinion. Let's move up to cruiserweights. Look, Jai Opatai came out of what a lot of people considered nowhere. I mean, he did have a strong amateur background in Australia. I think he was like the youngest Olympian they've ever had in boxing. I mean, very, very young. He took care of business and won the world title, the IBF world title. We still have Lawrence Okoli. We still have Makabu. We still have Goulamirian, the Armenian based out of France. Much like the lower weight classes that don't get much attention, here in the United States, I have the same argument for the cruiserweight in terms of not getting attention. You got to do what Holyfield did. You got to do what Usyk did. You got to go unify these titles and be undisputed to make a name for yourself. All right? It's not enough.
David Hay.
Yeah, David Hay. Thank you so much, Tony. David Hay, absolutely. It's not enough to meander around the 200-pound division, the cruiserweights, and just defend one title belt. Your name is not going to ring, all right? It's just not going to happen. So in that vein, I would personally like to see Lawrence Okoli try to unify against one of the other champions. I think he's definitely proved himself capable at this point of beating a Makabu. There was a time when I kind of doubted that a little bit. Now I kind of see that as a tougher proposition. Oh, sorry, easier proposition than I once did. And I would like to see Opatai take on Goulamirian. Those two guys have smaller names, believe it or not, than even a Makabu, who, you know, has his name out there a little bit because he's fought in the United States. He beat Tony Bellew, and he also was rumored to potentially take on Canelo. So people kind of know about him to a certain extent. Whether it's in line with his performances is another story altogether. But I think that because of that, Makabu's got a big enough name for an Okoli fight, whereas Opatai and Goulamirian, like, they fight each other. They make kind of more of a name for themselves. And then hopefully we could get some kind of a unification fight going on for Undisputed, because right now, I mean, the most famous cruiserweight right now, honestly, is Jake Paul. I mean, he's more famous than all of these guys.
I'd like to see Opatai against Makabu and Goulamirian against Okoli. I think those will make more action-packed fights, because the Goulamirian one's going to be more of a shootout, more entertaining, and Makabu is going to be, obviously he's going to be like have to be the front foot kind of pressure guy, and Opatai is going to be the boxer puncher. So I feel like, and that would establish both with like a credible name, like someone that everyone knows. So you get the up and comer with the big name on both sides, as opposed to two big names and then two no names, for lack of a better phrase.
Well, you know,
can I just make a point? Sorry, can I just make a point to the person who just commented in the chat? Anthony Yard never had a no spar clause. He spars all the time.
Okay. That's based not on anything Anthony Yard said, but something that Tunde said a while ago. I don't know if he was joking when he said it or not, but he's the one who said that, not Yard. But Base, I stand corrected. You're absolutely right. I actually like those matchups more. The main point, though, that I think we both agree on is that these guys need to fight each other for their names to ring. Cruiserweight is not a division where you can do what welterweights and lightweights do, which is like just, you know, defend your belt and your name is out there. You know.
That being said, though, we've got a pretty good domestic scene over here for cruiserweight. So we've got a lot of guys just underneath the championships that can all mix it up.
Absolutely. You got CBS, for those of you that don't know, is Chris Billum Smith. top dog out there. I mean, his last win was very, very impressive.
Yeah, him, Mikhail Lawal, Richard Riakporhe still out there, Chev Clark, Jordan Thompson. So some decent guys.
There you go. And there's also decent guys that were still kind of hanging around from the World Boxing Super Series that I wouldn't mind seeing. What's going on with the KO Doctor as of late? You know, for just to drop one name.
Yeah, I haven't seen him for a little while.
I haven't seen him for a little while either. I mean, I'd love to see him get into the mix with one of these.
Ryan Rosicki as well. I need to see him again after the fight he had with Oscar Rivas. That was a great fight. When they had a cruiserweight title, but he's a cruiserweight. So.
Right, and can somebody finally get rid of Sergey Kovalev? Because he's moved up to 200 pounds as well. So, you know, he's
fighting on Triller, so it's all right.
There you go. So look, it's time to close things out with the glamour division. All right. It's time to close things out with the big boys. All right. Sorry, Tony. We're not talking lightweights. We're talking Maestro size. 6'4", 235, 240 plus. All right. Well, I'm not 240 plus. You know, I ballooned up in weight for a little bit, but we're trying to come back down. We're trying to get more slim and trim to the cruiserweight levels. But I do want to talk about the heavyweight championship of the world. All right. I love doing my little what's his name? Diamante voice inflections. I love doing those. All right, but guys, we've got the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury. We've got Alexander Usyk, okay? The unified heavyweight champ. All right, we've got the juggernaut. Choo choo. We got the juggernaut. He's in the building. All right. Guess what, guys? Deontay's still there, right? AJ's still hanging around. And then we got up-and-comers like Filip Hrgovic, all right? And, of course, the #1 heavyweight prospect in the world, Jared Big Baby Anderson. So let me know, guys. We're all in agreement that the fight we need to see is the heavyweight championship, undisputed fight. You were going like this, Tony, but I know you're going to pay those 40 Ps, all right? A shout out to P Money out of South London. That's my guy. I don't know if you guys know about P Money.
Yeah, I know P.
He's a wordsmith, much like Maestro. All right, so you're going to be spending those P's, man. You're going to be spending that P money on that pay-per-view, Tony, and you damn well know it because the Gypsy King against Usyk is a must-watch fight, okay? Must-watch fight. Must-watch. I'm going to be watching. But we all agree on that one. So throw me out some other fights that we need to see. All right, I threw out one earlier. AJ against, Wilder. I called it a relegation match. I want to see that fight. All right, relegation. All right, loser gets relegated. All right. What else?
You heard the fight I said. Arslanbek Makhmudov against Joe Joyce.
That's a really good fight. Yeah. Really good fight. So we got that one too. All right, I got another one for you guys. I said this before. If I'm AJ, I'm going after the Reggie belt. I'm going after Daniel Dynamite Dubois because that's my quickest path to get into a mandatory position. If I'm Dynamite Dubois and I'm Frank Warren, if you're ever going to get AJ's scalp, now's the time to do it. He's looking a little bit more vulnerable. You don't want to pick him up after a confidence-boosting win against a Dillian White. And Lord knows I don't even need to see that fight. I'm not interested. Sorry. We gotta go
injured for the next 6 months. He's got an ACL tear.
Oh, goodness gracious. Hey, my man Bass coming with the bad news. So we got to scratch that matchup. Joseph Parker apparently is going to be fighting again in the UK. Have you guys heard about that?
Yeah, he's fighting.
Yeah, he's on the undercard of
Smith and Eubank.
Eubank, yeah.
Fighting Jack Massey, who's a former cruiserweight.
There you go. So I'll give you two fights I wouldn't mind seeing featuring Jared Big Baby Anderson. All right. One, I wouldn't mind seeing him against the former WBA Reggie title holder, Trevor Bryant. All right. Little confidence booster. Like, let's see. Hey, he's a former world champ. Look, Tony, you're a Reggie title guy. So he's taking on a former world champion in your books, not in my books, in your books. All right, because if you rank Tank Davis as a 3-division champion like you do, then throw some respect on Trevor Bryant's name. Throw some respect on it.
Like I should throw respect on Charles Martin, right? Or Dominic Brazil.
Bro, you're taking all my names from me. These are the guys I want served up to Big Baby. You're taking all my names. The first one was going to be Trevor Bryant. The second one was going to be Charles Martin, 2 former world champions. I would say 1 former world, but we know in your world it's 2. Okay, and the other one that I would want to see, all right, you're going to like this one, though, Tony. I know you're going to like this one. I know you're going to like it. Battle of the Big Babies.
No.
Killer against Big Baby Anderson. Loser.
Get out of here.
Loser no longer gets to say that.
Get out of it. So let me just put in real quick my fight and let's get the hell out of here. So the fight I would like to see would be Zhile Zhang against Big Joe Joyce.
Woo! That's a big one. And I'm seeing it coming up in the chat as well. That's a big one. I like that one.
You know another good fight for Jared Anderson?
Yeah.
Jerry Forrest.
Sorry,
not Jerry Forrest. I meant Jermaine Franklin.
Jermaine Franklin.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. You know, Jermaine Franklin was doing his thing there in this fight right here.
And obviously, like Jerry Forrest, there was the controversy because it was a split decision win for Jermaine Franklin against him. So see how he does in the other side of that fight.
100%. 100%. And you know what? Call me crazy, guys. And I don't necessarily know if this can happen business-wise, but one of these 2 guys really needs to make a stronger case for themselves in the heavyweight division, especially being that they're undersized. As a boxing fan, I actually wouldn't mind seeing Frank Sanchez take on Michael Hunter. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight, right? I wouldn't mind seeing that fight because every time I hear these guys' name, I'm like, yeah, but he's kind of small. Like, he's not really, but battle of the smaller guys, battle of the smaller heavyweights, right? Let me ask you guys something and we'll close out on this. Yay or nay, should I attend the fight that's going to be happening between Rivas and F.A. Ajagba in upstate New York? Because I'm on the fence about it.
Rivas is out of the fight. He got eye injury.
He's coming with.
I'm sorry. I need to protect you here. Like, you don't want to spend money for a fight that's not happening. This is taking on a Jagba now.
Happens when you're at.
What's going on? The knowledge?
No, but I'll tell you, this is what happened when the knowledge is working Monday to Friday, and we're at the end of the calendar year. This is what happens.
Now, Stephen Shaw's jumped into his place, so he's taking on F.A. Jagba now. Instead of being on the co-main, he's moved up to the main event.
Got it. Well, speaking of the knowledge, I got a couple things I need to share knowledge-wise. The first is you guys got to make sure you check out the Undefeated podcast, Trav and KG. All right, you got to check out Monday Night Smoke. Or you got to make sure you check out the breakdown with Tony P and Base the Kid. You got to make sure you subscribe to Base the Kid. You subscribe to Tony P. Base has got one of the most underrated channels out there. He's dropping fight picks. He's doing fight analysis. And he's more consistent with the content than yours truly. So you got to make sure you check him out because he's week after week, he's doing the thing. All right. Tomorrow I'm going to be going live for a little thing on Christmas. We're going to give you some Christmas content. I'm going to be with Ringside Reporter Live. All right. The topic is simple. Speaking of heavyweights, the topic is how come Fury's able to fight for Undisputed so easy, but AJ couldn't do it? AJ had all this time to do it. He couldn't do it. Meanwhile, Fury's able to do it quick time. So that's kind of the discussion I'm going to be having with Joe on his channel, Ringside Reporter Live. And I got a special one lined up. Well, you guys got to wait for this one because this one's lined up. This is going to be the last little thing before we get out of there. We're going to do a breakdown about how this happened. people have been asking me, Maestro, how did you become Master Knowledge? How did you become the real knowledge? So we're going to revisit the Better Beeb yard conversation that I had on Monday Night Smoke. And the title's going to be The Real Knowledge, How Maestro Became the Real Master Knowledge. We're going to do a special Christmas Day special. We're going to revisit the topic. There you go. So that's... Oh, I'm on it. Look at my guys. They can't wait. He's so excited.
I'm tuning in.
Look, Tony's like a kid at Christmas, like waiting for a surprise. He had to cover his eyes. He really wants to see it. So it's going to be a good one. All right. The Master Knowledge is going to explain how I got the title, why the great defeaters were going crazy in the chats, saying that I'm the knowledge, I'm the new knowledge, and all of this other stuff. Look, it's a very humbling experience, being from my humble beginnings, public school teacher, to make it all the way to where people are calling me this. It takes a tremendous ego to be able to do this, to call myself this. So it actually takes practice. I actually sent Tony some footage of me riding my bike, believe it or not, practicing to be the knowledge. Because to call yourself that, it takes work. So now I got to ride my bike as the knowledge. I got to buy fruit as the knowledge. I got to set up my computer as the knowledge. And we go from there. But in all seriousness, guys, thank you so much. These are my two brethrens up there, two of the best doing it. Thank you. I'm going to wish you guys a great holiday season and a happy new year. And hopefully we get some of these fights. All right. Seriously, I hope if we get half of these fights, it's going to be a great year next year. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So that's going to be it, guys. Thank you so much. Base, take care. And Tony, take care. And I'll speak to you guys offline.
All right.
Take care, guys.
All right. Thank you, guys. You take care. All right. So that's it, guys. That was it. It was the best of 2023. I hope you enjoyed it. Went a little bit longer than I thought it would, but the best of 2023, the most anticipated fights of 2023, courtesy of me, courtesy of Base, courtesy of Tony P from The Breakdown. Oh, those are my guys out there in the UK. Thank you so much. So that's it, guys. I appreciate it. If you didn't know, well, this was a special edition of Punchlines. And make sure you join me again.
Gorilla than the planet of the apes. I write a punchline and plant it on your face. Eat a punch that you ain't even got to taste. Here's a shot that you ain't even got to chase.